Star Cup, yeah.
Okay, if there's not two of us, then we can't bring just these two.
Oh, you mean after
Yeah,
this?
there's no time, which is fine. Just you won't do it.
Sure. Because I can have her
It'll be
on.
it's a roadblock.
Because she didn't put it in my order of service until 10:45, 11:45.
Okay.
Oh, there they are.
Are they sitting together now? Is that the
John was like, it's 10 years, 10 years. He's feeling much better. Those flowers are gorgeous, too.
I love that florist. They always have different unusual things. Welcome back to the First Unitarian Church in Providence, where we love beyond belief.
Please join me in reading aloud the words of our chalice lighting that are written in your order of service. This light burns also in our hearts, and it lights our path toward harmony, justice, and hope for all.
Unitarian Universalist minister, the Reverend Dick Gilbert, wrote, "We bid you welcome who come with weary spirit, seeking rest, who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come weary or hurt or afraid. We bid you welcome who come with hope in your heart, who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous. We bid you welcome who are seekers of a new faith, who come to probe and explore, who come to learn. We bid you welcome who enter this hall as a homecoming, who have found here room for your spirit, who find in this people a family. Wherever you are, whoever you are, whatever you are, howsoever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome." And this is our time for greeting. You'll remember if you were here last week, we're having to do this a little differently right now. We used to run around the whole meeting house and say hi to people and make a point of reaching out to say hi to people we hadn't met, but we're trying to be very careful right now at this time. So what we're inviting everybody to do instead is to turn around, face people before you, behind you, above you, below you, and just wave at each other and say hello and send the friendliest gaze out of your eyes that you can, since we're all masked. So let's take a moment to do that all together. Don't walk around, just say hi. Hello, balcony. And then let's all turn around. Oh, I forgot to figure out which camera it is. Michael, which camera are we aiming at? The far one, closest to the, okay, everybody at home. Oh no, it's the near one, further from the, let's wave and say hello to the people who are at home. We miss you. We can't wait to be with you. Hello. I heard from people last week that they said hello back. So, now we have our reading.
Today's reading is by African-American UCC minister Reverend Davida McAllister from her book, White Privilege. Let's Talk, Chapter 3. I wish I could remember the year of the great storm in the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia tri-state area. Back then we didn't call it the DMV. It was simply the DC or metro area. Perhaps I don't remember that year because it was during that time of life when you haven't learned to record such things. What I do remember is that I was in elementary school and we had more snow than I had ever seen. The entire DC area had come to a screeching halt. No school, no work for my parents, and no church. I didn't know such a thing was possible. How could you close church? It was like putting God on hold while you played elevator music. The reason this storm sticks out in my mind is not the lack of school or even the lack of church. Instead, it was one simple act by my mother. She sat her 3 children down at the dining room table to have church. She was, and still is, a Sunday school teacher. On that cold Sunday morning, my mother pulled out her Sunday school lesson, and my siblings and I all sat at the table and had church. This was a big deal for a couple of reasons. Number one, this was our formal dining room. As children, we were only allowed in this space on Christmas morning for our eggnog toast, and on Thanksgiving for the table blessing. Even on Christmas and Thanksgiving, we sat at the kids' table, a temporary accommodation for all of the members of the family who were not elders. Number two, the dining room table was reserved for grown-ups and the occasional birthday party celebration, but only during the cake cutting. Yet on this day, we sat at that dining room table as my mother offered her Sunday school lesson as a makeshift sermon. I must confess I don't remember the lesson, the scripture, or even her words. What I do recall, as vividly as any sunrise, was the real sense that church mattered. It mattered whether the doors of the sanctuary were open or closed. It mattered whether the roads were clear or impassable. And it mattered even if my father didn't leave my parents' bedroom to attend our table fellowship. Taking the time each week to offer God praise mattered.
One of the ways we here at First U transform our love into action is by the sharing of the joys and the sorrows that connect us. To participate in this section, people are invited anytime in the sanctuary to write a note in this little book, which is located in the back. And if you're at home, you're welcome to send an email before noon on any Saturday so that we can be in touch with each other's joys and sorrows. A candle of joy for another happy birthday for Max Pounder. A candle of healing for Amy Grant, who is suffering with an illness. Cards and calls are welcome. A candle of remembrance for my beloved son, Frank Sharon. A candle of sorrow for the loss of our mom, Edith. May she be at peace, free of worry and fear. A candle of sympathy for Emily Connor. Her father, Ted Gibbs, passed away suddenly on September 7th at his home near San Antonio. A candle of joy for the good news that my mom's melanoma has not spread beyond one lymph node, which has already been removed. A candle of joy for Eric Crook and Joanne Pella as they celebrate their marriage at the Squantum Club this afternoon, which will be officiated by me. My friends, let us rest in the gladness that we have each other to share our joys and our sorrows. Indeed, it makes all the difference. I'm going to offer an original prayer followed by a time of silence. It's our tradition here to stand during that time of silence to honor someone that you may have lost this past year. And if you're at home, stand or raise your hand and also join us in silent tribute of someone you've loved and lost. When the silence is concluded, there will be a gentle chime. To begin, I'm going to ask you all to center in and breathe with me. Start by just relaxing your bodies in your seats. Let your heads drop, let your shoulders drop. Feel yourselves where you are and be present to each other and to yourselves. Take a deep breath in. And one more. Spirit of life and love, we've gathered here in search of answers to hard questions. We've come in search of understanding, in search of community. We've come in search of hope and healing. We have come needing to be loved back into the people we know we are. Let this be a place not only of searching, but one of discovery. Let this be a place not only of learning, but of wisdom. Let this be a place not only of meeting, but of connection. And let this be a place where healing fosters compassion and love indeed helps us to reclaim our lives. Blessed be. Amen.
I just can't get over how lovely it is to see you. I really can't. I'm so glad you're here. I'm so glad every single one of you is here. And safe. And well. And holding on. I want to start this sermon with two stories that are from the past few months. I don't usually tell a lot of stories from my own life, but for this sermon it seemed like I needed to. The first one is that one day in the past summer I had sort of hit the wall. I was out of positive energy or good feelings. And I was talking to my sister, Jenny, about it on the phone and just kind of ranting. I don't know if you guys have had any of those moments in the past year and a half. Jenny was saying she knew just how I felt. She was feeling it too, and she referred me to a Roz Chast cartoon. Roz Chast is a cartoonist that I find hilarious. And the cartoon she was describing to me shows a woman sitting on a couch in her living room with this frantic rictus grimace like this on her face. Huge bug eyes. And all around her, on multiple throw cushions, on all the furniture, and framed all around her on the walls over and over again, it says, Live, laugh, love. Live, laugh, love. Live, laugh, love. This crazed woman is so bought in, literally, and she is trying so hard. And she is so not there. I Googled it while we were on the phone and I found it, and as soon as I saw it, I felt better. Jenny and I actually started laughing on the phone. We had both so been there. And that's exactly what's reflected in my second story from the summer. I met my best friend, Vanessa, in divinity school almost 30 years ago now, and through the whole of our friendship, howsoever far apart our ministries have landed us, including in Greece and India, we have carved out time together every year, usually on Cape Cod in the summer. And in the beginning, it was just us, and then eventually it was our husbands, and then our children joined the mix. Our time together is precious and deeply restorative. Of course, COVID put the kibosh on that sacred time together, and 2 years passed without the chance to see each other in person. I will not go into how hard that was, but finally this past summer, it was possible, and it was so good. It was more than fun. It was so healing to be together. A few days in, she and I were out running errands, and we were talking about a thing that we both had opinions about. And she said something, and I responded, agreeing with part of what she said, but voicing also a concern about it. And as I was responding, she interrupted me, saying, I get what you're saying, but you are raising your voice and being really intense, and it's a little much. It's a little much to be on the receiving end. So if you could dial it down and lower your voice, I would appreciate it. I was dumbfounded. I had not meant at all to be aggressive or over the top. I was hurt now and shocked and embarrassed. I took a breath and I thought, and then I responded, trying to modulate my voice and deal with all the negative emotions that were surging in me. I said, I was sorry. I didn't realize I was being over the top. I would shift gears, and I would be more careful. She thanked me. We each took another breath, and then we continued the conversation. So that was it. In some ways, it was a really minimal exchange. The whole thing took less than 30 seconds. Earlier this week, when I asked Van's permission to recount the story to you, she had forgotten all about it. I know, oh my God, right? No, she had forgotten all about it, but for me, obviously, it was huge. It hurt. She and I had never had that kind of an exchange before. We have never had to negotiate our friendship. Never. I blame COVID. COVID that keeps us stressed and offers new demoralizing variants and impacts over and over. COVID that is literally everywhere all the time. COVID that has become the newest manifestation of our nation's deep rifts. COVID that keeps us apart and limited so long and so hard that now we have to work to re-engage, to show up in person, even though at the same time we're so sick of Zoom and screens. COVID that has worn and shaped us enough that we have to remember how to be together and work to regain our skills at simply being together. When Vanessa did eventually remember that exchange, she told me that, yeah, she thought I probably had been coming on strong, but also she was so abraded by everything that life had dealt her in the past couple years, everything it had required of her, that she was pretty abraded and raw. So she thinks now that she was probably oversensitive on her end as well. Aggressive, abraded, this is not how we want to be. It isn't how Vanessa and I want to be or feel. It isn't how any of us want to be or feel. And of course, it isn't how we all feel, and it isn't how we all feel all the time, but it is how some of us feel some of the time. We want to be strong and wise and clear, but sometimes find ourselves exhausted and demoralized and confounded instead. How do we deal? How do we keep dealing when everything takes such effort, when life is so fragile, when even our strongest relationships are impacted, when we can forget something so simple as to how to be together, when we long for joy and to be carefree, but we can't yet practice some of our most basic joyful ways, like touching, like hugging, like singing, like being with those we love, like all of us, everyone already here and all of you at home that we wish were also here, all of us being together in church. The phrase that keeps coming to mind is recalled to life. Recalled to life by the necessities of living and the yearnings of the heart and the realities of vaccinations and the possibilities of a slow, hard-won victory over the virus. They all literally call us to be together, call us to gather here. If you are here today, you have surely heard or felt that call. Call us to reclaim so much that we have lost, or at least put away, for at least a year and a half. Recalled to life is a phrase from A Tale of Two Cities, which is the 19th century masterpiece about the French Revolution that was written by the brilliant and Unitarian English novelist Charles Dickens. I know, that's the highlight of the service so far, right? Charles Dickens, a Unitarian? Recalled to life. It's a code. It means that one of the characters, Dr. Manette, has been released after 18 years of brutal and unjust suffering in the Bastille prison, terrible Bastille. At first, it refers only to his being freed, which has perhaps only happened because at that point the doctor has been reduced to a strange shadow of his former self. He hardly speaks, and he compulsively cobbles shoes, which it turns out is what he did in prison. But recalled to life also comes to reflect his slow, steady healing from that strange and terribly reduced version of himself, back to who he used to be, a man of kindness, perception, courage, and generosity of spirit. Ultimately, recalled to life comes to mean a resurrection of the spirit, a renewal of capacity for living that transcends circumstances. This must be why it keeps echoing through my reflections these days. We are being recalled to life, and it is not an easy thing, but it doesn't have to be easy to be done. This is not a go-with-the-flow opportunity. It is the opposite. It's an opportunity that requires intention and care and patience and determination. And we can, as I have, blame COVID, but it's not enough to blame COVID. That may be where we start. It is not enough on its own. It's fine to say, this is why we're struggling like this. But we still need to decide what our response beyond blame will be. Most importantly, we need to decide how to reclaim, to win back what we are unwilling to keep losing. Time with loved ones, beloved rituals and traditions, precious pastimes and places, joy. And this is why I love Reverend Davita McAllister's story about the time the storm snowed out church. Her mother didn't hesitate. Church was non-optional. It was not losable. If they didn't have it one way, fine. They would have it another. In the best room in the house, because it mattered that much. All of us have striven over the past year and a half to find our own versions of Reverend McAllister's story, to create our own alternate sacred spaces and times and beloved community. And I know it has not been easy, and it surely hasn't been perfect, but that's okay. That's okay. It may be frustrating. Well, let's not mince words. It has been at least frustrating, and sometimes more than that. But it doesn't have to be easy or perfect. It just has to be real. Whether we are in this beloved meeting house, or on a screen at home, or at our dining room table, whether it is a Sunday school lesson or a sermon, whether it is bliss or a negotiation, real efforts, the very best we can do. We keep trying, we keep learning, we keep working to honor and keep what and who we love the best we can. And in this church, it is our shared commitment, whether we've been here 50 years, or this is our second week, or our first week. It is our shared commitment, not just mine, not just Reverend Rogers, or our religious education director, Kathy's, or Jen's, or the Prudential Committee, our boards, or anyone's. It's everyone's shared commitment to keeping church in any and every way we can that is keeping church, that will keep church, that will keep this church and carry us through to the other side that we are getting closer to. Because yes, though it is slower than we want, slower than we need, we are coming through this. The storm is passing over. And we are here. And keeping the church ensures we will be here for that blessed day that we can rip off our masks and see each other fully, smiling or crying, and hug or shake hands and sing together. But this isn't just about church. It is about life, about the extra and likely unprecedented work of friendships and in marriages. And so much that we love and miss that takes new effort to keep strong and going, even ultimately ourselves. We require new effort to keep strong, to keep going, to keep at least from descending into that live, love, laugh. What all this comes down to is grace. And I don't mean divine grace only, the unlooked for blessing, the serendipity, the generosity of life that we cannot command, but that makes every difference in this life. No, that grace is awesome, literally, and surely is a big help, especially now, to any one of us that it visits. Grace is understood theologically as something we can never compel or earn. It comes to us from outside ourselves as an experience of sacredness or spiritual renewal, a revitalized strength to endure, a moment of sacred personal insight, a gift, some kind of blessing that has profound meaning for us. The folk singer David Wilcox defines grace, I've always loved this, as the bridge that is built to us from the other side. But I am also talking about human grace our grace. In this case, congregational grace. Part of what must help us through these times is that we have to extend grace to each other. We have to offer each other unearned, unsought kindness, generosity of spirit. Do thoughtful things for each other, say thoughtful things to each other, notice each other, help each other. Offer each other the gifts of care and compassion and patience and support and steadfastness, creating oases of compassion amidst this abrasive time that is so set on grinding us down. That is what beloved community, real beloved community, is all about. Making sure everyone is cared for and valued. Beloved community is our commitment to each other, and we learn it from and teach it to each other all the time, growing our capacity to offer that kind of grace. And we can share that grace with those we care for, our friends, our teachers, our students, our spouses, our partners, our parents, our children, way beyond this congregation, all the circles of care that we inhabit. The 6 feet apart birthday choir that spontaneously started from in this church and sang to people outside their homes on their birthdays. That's grace. Delivering food to a quarantined friend or stranger. That is grace. Forgiving some difficult exchange, apologizing for a difficult exchange, that is grace also. Gifts we do not have to earn from each other. Generosities of spirit we freely can offer each other. Gifts that are life-affirming, soul-supporting, sometimes even life-saving. A phone call. A second chance. Listening. A card. A care package. A text. A visit. Outside, socially distanced, full of love. Countless ways we can show up for each other and remind each other and ourselves of the saving power of connection and care. It gives us everything, even grace, even joy. Last week, after our church afternoon at Colt State Park, I really hope everybody's gone and looked at the photographs that are on the Facebook page, because it was a hoot. I went to Tabernacle of God Church on Union Avenue in Providence. I had been invited as a surprise for my friend, Pastor Howard Jenkins of Bethel AME. Howard and I hadn't seen each other in person since we were together last May for a gun control event in a park following a shooting. At Tabernacle of God, he was honored with an award for his leadership work on vaccine access and uptake in Rhode Island communities of color, and he so deserves it. I was deeply honored to be invited, and all the more so when, as I was there, I realized I was the only white person in the room. As we waited for the event to start, I saw Howard Jenkins and his wife sitting near me, and I realized then that he had no idea I was there. So I started texting him, pestering him about a phone call that he owed me, and a plan that we were in the midst of working on. And as the texts flew back and forth, I kept waiting for him to glance around and notice I was actually there in the room. But he never did. I was sitting with a member of Bethel that I know from our work together, and he and I just kept watching while we were texting, amazed. Finally, after he suggested a phone meeting later that night, I texted him, or you could just look to your left. And he did. And there I was, maybe 12 feet away. He threw back his head and he started laughing. And I went over and I talked to him and his wife. We all laughed and chatted and caught up again, the first time we'd seen each other not on Zoom in so many months. It felt so good. It felt so good to laugh and to relish this precious collegial friendship, to be there for him, to show up for him. I did it for him, and it fed me, and it gave me life, and it gave me joy. It was the same day that I had gotten to see so many of you for the first time in so long, and that was a great, great joy and fulfillment. Most of my joys had come earlier that day in so many shapes and sizes. I had already been filled with gratitude for the regathering and renewal of my community. This was almost the last joy of that day, because it was an unexpected joy. It felt like grace. It felt like grace, and it made me realize how many gifts I had received in the living of that one day, how many gifts are possible, needing sometimes only something small from us, something so small and so necessary as the air we breathe, the water that fills us, particles and compounds that come together in good ways, because when they come together, what they make possible is life. Such small things give us life. What grace we receive and give, even now, especially now. Amen. This is the time in our service for your opportunity to practice generosity. Speaking of generosity of spirit, it comes in many forms, and one of the ways we rely on growing that spirit together is with the weekly offering that we take for the life and the work of this beloved community. We managed to get by last year with all our virtual services and online giving that didn't really take off, I'll be honest. We kept trying to make it easier and more fun, but it never really took off, so the church took a bit of a hit. We are back together now. Please give as generously as you are able for the life and the work of this beloved community. We always have invitations that we share about different ways we can lean into and practice our faith together. In addition to your invitation to give, I have these opportunities. We are so happy to be able to welcome visitors to our worship and our church. If you are a visitor and you have any questions or just want to introduce yourself, our membership coordinator, Jen Nardone, is walking down the aisle right now. She looks like this. She and any hospitality team members, our ushers and greeters for today, will be out on the front lawn after the service. So please head out there, stop by, say hello, and get any questions answered from them. This is very exciting to those of us who have to work with it, and the rest of you don't care, I know, but we have a new online directory. It is called Realm, and though you don't care, you need to. Did I mention it's a directory? We seriously need everyone to log into it and make your own personal login password. Everyone who was in our old database already has an account in Realm, but you have to log in. Otherwise, you will not be able to use the directory to be in touch with fellow church members, and you won't be in the directory. Basically, it will be like you're not in church, and we are not using the old database, so the fact that you were there is not enough. And frankly, I will just add a personal note and say when I have called people out of the old directory, some of you gave your home number and then you never answer, and so that doesn't work so great. Like, if I'm calling you, I really need to talk to you, because I don't call that often. So there's probably a reason. So we need the updated information, and we need it in the new format. We need to be able to reach you. You need to be able to reach each other. Logging into Realm will allow you to update your own information, send messages to other people, communicate within church groups you're in, also register for events. It's a big, important change we have long needed, and we're doing it. So, it's not a super fun thing, but it's not hard. It's essential. We need you to do it. Please do it. Please do it now. You will get also a reminder email about this week. Yes, Joan? You will get a reminder about this in the coming week that will give you instructions about how to do it. And if you have any questions, it literally says this. I was going to say this anyway. If you are confused or have any questions at all about this, after you've read the email from the church about it, please feel free to call the church office and ask for Nancy or Walter, and they will help walk you through it. People keep telling me, I also haven't done it, so I promised them I would do it, but people keep telling me, the ones who've done it, that it's not hard. Okay? So please make sure you do it. Lastly, I have an invitation for you from First U's Mosaic team. Everybody has this, right? In your order of service, people at home, there was a little bit of information, but it's coming to you at home as well. Over the past few years, we have heard from so many in the congregation that you want First Unitarian to become a more racially and ethnically and culturally diverse and inclusive community. Because of this, last year, the Prudential Committee, our board, approved the establishment of the Mosaic Steering Team, a team proposed by members of the congregation to support this impetus at First U and figure out what is needed to move us forward on this path. This is big, important work, and the Mosaic team needs everyone's support and input. They're also looking for a few more core team members who would have some time each week to put into planning and coordinating racial diversity and inclusion work for our community. If you are interested in joining the team, or if you have ideas to share, please get in touch with the Mosaic team. Everyone here in person can find the team's email address and a link to more information on that yellow insert in your order of service. You can also speak with Lee Rodman or Louise Sloan outside after the service. Could Louise and Lee, Louise is right here, I don't see where Lee is. There's Lee, way back there. This is what they look like. Please go see them after the service if you'd like to learn more or get involved. If you are joining us from home, you'll find the team's information in the most recent First U Times. We hope everyone can pitch in to help us all deepen towards becoming the inclusive congregation that our spirits and our faith call for. Our closing words are by the Reverend Elizabeth Tarbox. Some of you will remember having heard them before. I can't get through a year without using these at least once because they are always so insightful and so right. But before we read her words, I do want to invite us all to make sure we listen to the whole postlude before departing, because like the prelude, it is an important part of the service. The prelude is the beginning of worship, and we choose it carefully. It's not just background music at a restaurant. It's meant to set the tone for the arc of the worship service we want to follow. Sometimes it's a high, sometimes it's a calm, grave piece, but it's intentional. And at the end, we offer a postlude to seal the service, the last word in the form of music, our last gift to you before you move from this space and time into conversations and encounters and then the rest of your day. We hope the music, as well as our words, speak to all of us and will sustain you in your going out until you come in again. Reverend Tarbox wrote this when she was diagnosed with a mortal form of cancer, which did eventually take her from her ministry and her life. When the day is too bright or the night too dark, and your feelings are like an avalanche barreling down the mountain of events outside your control, when you look down and you are falling and you cannot see the bottom, or when your pain has eaten you and you are nothing but an empty, hungry hole, then there is an opportunity for giving. Don't stay home and cover your head with a pillow. Go outside and plant a tulip bulb in the ground. That is an act of rebirth. Sprinkle breadcrumbs for the squirrels or sunflower seed for the birds. That is a claiming of life. And when you have done that, or if you cannot do that, go stare at a tree whose leaves are letting go for its very survival. Pick up a leaf, stare at it. It has something to teach you. You are as precious as the birds, or the tulips, or the tree whose crenellated bark protects the insects who seek its shelter. You are an amazing, complex being. You have poetry in your arteries and charity layered in your skin. You have before you a day full of opportunities for living and giving. Do not think you know all there is to know about yourself, for you have not given enough away yet to be able to claim self-knowledge. Do you have work to do today? Then do it. As if your life were hanging in the balance. Do it as fiercely as if it mattered, for it does. Do you think the world doesn't need you? Think again. You beautify the world with your giving. You perfect the world with your thinking and acting and caring. Don't stay home and suffocate on your sorrow. Go outside and give yourself to the world's asking.
Please join us in reciting the words of our chalice extinguishing, written in the order of service. We carry the flame of peace and love and hope until we meet again.